All right, we're recording. Um, Back at you, special guest, very special guest in the studio today. I'll give it over to my co-host Missy, so you can give her such a great introduction.
All right. Well, this isn't prepared. They never are, though, so that's okay because we'll get to know you throughout. But Amanda Cochran is here. She's v- always been very involved in the community, but I had never heard of her until she called me. I don't know how long ago, a year ago, maybe.
Over a year. Over a year.
And we met up and talked about politics and all kinds of stuff. She was contemplating a run for, well, she wasn't, she had decided she was running for office and contemplating me as her campaign manager. So we connected. We're sisters now. We're family.
That's right.
It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Her family's my family. My family's your family.
That's right.
But it's hard to introduce her because she's just got such a breadth of when you get to know her, there's just so many layers to this onion, and I think
I like it.
I like it. I think that your foundation, your ministry, your gospel ministry, I think had a lot to do with shaping you as a person and as a conservative, a Christian conservative. Um, you broke into politics and adapted very well to politics, to somebody that had never been involved in it. She's always been involved in her community out there in East Lee County, trying to make things better for the citizens out there. But we got out and running around Lee County because we needed to get her name recognition throughout Lee County. It was a countywide race. She knew a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I'm like, you know, more people here than I do. You don't even be any here, but no, but she's amazing from her gospel ministry that she's been doing for more than 25 years now with her family, to her very successful business her and her husband have here in Lee County, to being her boys, her sons are seventh generation Lee County. Her forefathers helped develop East Lee
Wow.
County. So
We're that rare breed.
so it's weird. I'll be talking about something and she'll go, "Oh, well, you didn't know about this. This happened 54 years ago, and I'm gonna have to send you that story. We're repeating ourselves." And I'm like, she's just a breath of
Wow.
knowledge here, and a resource for me personally, and a dear friend. So Amanda Cochran.
Well, thank you. This is fun. I told my husband this morning, getting ready, I felt like I'm back on the campaign trail. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, who knows? Who knows?
I know. Oh my.
Yeah.
Wild ride. Wild ride. I heard somebody say that until you campaign politically, that on a schedule, you can't understand or really explain to others what that's like.
It's hard.
And it was. Do hard things.
I do try to scare people.
Yeah.
I try to scare. I'm like, if you're gonna run, then run off.
You did.
You're kind of right. It is not you with a faint of.
You did a very good job prepping me for how difficult it would be, and I appreciate that. But I did it anyway.
And it's hard to understand it until you don't see your family one night this week.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you have to be really built for it.
Yeah. And when you come home and your husband wants to talk about your whole day, but that's all you've talked about, and you say, "I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
done.
talking about this anymore."
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. No, absolutely. I've been down that path before. When your wife wants you to talk about your day, and you're like, "I'm done talking."
Yeah. Let's pick this up in the morning.
Well, Amanda, it's our humble pleasure to have you in the studio with us.
I love it.
And as we always do, we bring people in because not only for us, but for our viewers and listeners, we want them to get to know more about the people in our studio. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you from? And where you went to high school at? You know, we go a little bit. We deep dive. Yeah, we deep dive. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let me first say I went to high school when there was only 3 or 4 here.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we were all rivals against each other.
Oh,
Now
wow.
there's so many I can't keep track of the rivals. But I went to Fort Myers High. So
Wow,
our
Greenie.
rival was North Fort Myers High.
Yeah.
So I think that generation still has, we put up old pictures and say, but we beat you then. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay. It's all right. At 92, now I just aged myself. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, you
92, our football team went to state. But whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, yes, she's right. 7th generations on Florida soil, and 6 to 7 if the papers are all right in Lee County area. We helped develop this area. I talk about this often because it's just a cool fact that my great-grandfather and his brothers and many of his family moved cattle from inland, like Felda, those areas, what's now at Corkscrew, Estero area to Ponderosa because they would move cattle to get on a barge to be shipped to different areas.
Wow.
Yeah, so that whenever I see that history pop up, I have to read it because I'm tied to it. So very cool. My husband's family is also generationally from here. And I don't know how we found each other, and we're both from here because that is an oddity to have people who are generations here. But where we live out in Alva, there's a lot of families that are there for generations. And I love my community. I was raised by, in a very conservative Christian family. My father came from Texas. My mother's side of the family is the one that's so deeply rooted here. And my father is a gospel singer and minister.
Oh, wow.
He started his singing career at 16 years old in the gospel music industry in Texas, and it brought him to the older generation would know the name Gaither, Bill Gaither. There's a series of, he's on the Gaither videos and homecoming series.
Really?
And traveled with them for years.
They did the national anthem one year.
They did.
That's my favorite rendition.
There you go. He's the tenor.
There you go. Yeah. So it is one of the known as the Irish tenor in their homecoming series. And he won. He won't tell you this, but I will because I'm the proud daughter. He won a Grammy in 2002. So yeah. So
Wow.
he'll tell you that the night that he won the Grammy, very quickly, he was scheduled to be at a little church in Williston, Florida. And I said, Dad, let's go to the Grammys. And he said, I told Williston, Florida, I'd be in Williston, Florida, and that's where I'm going to be. And I said, but Dad, they'll reschedule. We can go to the Grammys. And he says, I don't have any aspirations of winning that Grammy because he was in the category with a lot of heavy hitters. But he said, I'm going to be in Williston, Florida. That's where I said I'd be. So he was in Williston, Florida, singing to about 300 people when he won the Grammy that night.
That explains a lot about you, because some of my frustration on the campaign trail was, no, you can't go to the Keys and sing. You need to be here, Grandpa. Yeah. What? I kind of made a commitment there. That's funny.
That's funny. We had a year before made the commitment, so I was in the seas singing yes. Or Easter.
Missi Lastra voice over it. I'm like,
I
you're
did.
back and you can't talk.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yes. Yes.
So is your parents still living?
They are. They are.
Okay.
My dad's dealing with some health struggles right now, but we're getting through it because we just push through whatever we need to and whatever we're asking for healing, but we're also praying for God's will. So,
Amen.
Anyway, I met my husband almost 30 years ago, and I was working at the time just out of high school, and we got together and got married. He was at the time in the car business. He was an independent car salesman. He's going to kill me. And I said I wasn't going to be married to a car salesman.
Yeah.
No, that's so wrong. That's terrible.
Javi was a car salesman, but he didn't own the business.
No, I'm teasing. That's terrible. It took care of us for a few years, so it's fine. Anyway, so we went into the real estate business, which he's always done real estate, even when he had the car business. But we went into the real estate. We started, he's been with RE/MAX for 20 plus years, but we have our own real estate firm, RE/MAX River and Ranch. But on to my favorite part. We have 2 biological children and what I like to refer to as our 2 bonus.
Oh, wow.
So my oldest bio is Nathan. He just graduated last week from University of Florida Law School.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yes, and I'm very proud of that. But more so, I'm proud that he's a good dude.
He's a good guy.
Who's a good dude. So he looks for ways to impact others.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm most proud of. And I'll say that about all my boys. The second bio graduated from FGCU in the entrepreneurship department with an entrepreneurship degree, and he has a local business here, and he also works with my husband in the real estate industry. My 2 bonus boys, they're awesome. Yes, Joe and Jocelyn, the oldest. They are of the Haitian descent. They came into our lives when they were in the 5th and 6th grade, and I couldn't love them more. I adore them. They fit wonderfully into our family. The oldest graduated from Samford University with an MBA, full ride, and he is now working at the corporate level for Enterprise in Birmingham.
Really?
That is correct. And the younger one graduated from Tusculum University, which is the oldest educational college establishment in Tennessee, and he got his MBA. and he is now working for Ohio State on their football staff.
Wow.
So very proud. Yes.
You
Yes,
blessed.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am. But I want to stress more so than their collegiate and educational and work accomplishments. I am most proud of the ways that they have found through that to impact their generation and their.
That's right.
Yeah, my youngest son opens every Wednesday night on Ortez Avenue at the church, the gym for area kids to play, and I say we sneak them into play. And then we get to talk to him about life.
Yeah.
So we bring him in for the basketball, and then he always finds a way to get to know him and impact. So.
No, I love it.
And they impact us too.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. My grandmother always told me, some people have the heart but not the ability. Some people have the ability but not the heart. But when you bring the ability and the heart together, you can make a level of impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that transcends legacy for people. And so we certainly salute you guys, your family, for making a difference.
Oh, I love it. I love it. They've done more for me, I assure you.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's what it's all about.
That's
Go
my
ahead, Missy.
proudest part.
Well, I was going to say, my daddy always told me you bring them in for what they want, but you slide in what they need.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
They won't
right.
even know it's happening.
That is exactly right.
Yeah, that's right. So outside of gospel, I always ask this question sometimes to people, like, what are you known for? When people see you, what do they think of? Yeah, I know, like
Bossy. Oh, sorry. Oh no, no.
I have her list-
I should have mentioned that I have 5 brothers. Okay, and we were all born within 6 years.
Oh wow!
So I'm known as bossy. When you're the only daughter,
I get it.
I have her listed in my phone as fiery lady.
Fiery lady.
She's the
no.
fiery lady.
Yeah, no, I hope that's not all I'm known for, but
No. Listen, she's known for. She is known, and she's a humble lady, but she is known for. She's there to help. Her and her husband, biggest hearts you could ever imagine. But if somebody needs help, they're there to help.
Yeah.
Her husband can't get through a day without trying to help somebody.
I know.
You know,
He's
Darius.
killing us.
And he always has lots of cash on him.
Well, he's gonna kill me. I won't let him have a debit card anymore because he used to just go by and ring it out. So now I make him go to the bank and just get cash. The whole world knows. I know. I won't let him.
Yeah.
So give it to everybody.
I know.
Give everything he had.
He just took out what yesterday? It's gone.
Yeah. No, I trust me. Like, I certainly can appreciate that. People ask me all the time. I get up about 2:45 a.m. every morning, and my first hour is just really in meditation and, really reading Psalms and Proverbs. But that very next hour is really seeking the Lord for who I can make an impact and, whatever that looks like, for me. And so I think if we have more people such as what we have in this studio today that can understand the power of impact, how we can rebuild communities, how we can rebuild kids, because there is a lost generation out there, and I know a lot of times we talk from a conservative standpoint of view, we bring people in and talk politics, but I like that you kind of get us outside of politics a little bit based off, what your vision, and we'll talk about that in a second,
Yes,
what your vision is, for not just our community, but for any individuals that you come in contact with, because I'm a firm believer. I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it hit me nail on the head. He said, and the pastor was saying, sometimes we complain about our season. Sometimes we complain about where we at in our season, but understand you're only in the season that God wants you in for that season, and you never know the level of impact that you're making because you're the neighbor to your neighbor. Like you're the you're the coworker to your coworker, and that's the reason why you on that job. That's the reason why you live in that neighborhood. It can only be it can sometimes just be transitionary that you're there, but you're there for the level of impact that God has put inside of you. So
no matter where it is, it's to plant seeds and learn.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. The farmer's mentality. The farmer's mentality. That's the thing that I love. I live by the farmer's mentality. I'm a strong believer that if you take a seed and you put it confined, it will never grow to its full potential.
Right.
Never grow to its full potential.
Right.
And so let's talk a little bit about what you're doing today.
How did I get into the political? Well, how I got into the political world, which was a fun little section of my life.
It might not be a section, but let's keep going.
I know, let's go.
Yeah.
So I didn't ever on any morning ending in Y wake up and say, I want to be a politician. Not any.
No, she did not.
No. Some things were happening in my community specifically that caused pause. And I thought, this can't really be happening. And without getting into all the details of that, they were decisions by our local government that was going to affect my life. I had been busy raising families and being a partner to my husband in our business. So I'm ashamed to say that those kind of things might have been happening, and that's somebody else's. I just assumed that my interests were being protected in Lee County.
Absolutely.
You know? So I was out to lunch, you might say. However, when I got those kids somewhat raised, they're never really raised, just so you know. I'm working on it always. They're 24 to 22. I'm working on it always.
Well, they call you for everything.
Everything.
Everything
Mom,
they
where
have
do
to
I
by
go-
mom,
where
no
can
matter
I
where
go to
they are in
lunch?
this country.
Where do I go to lunch? Really? You have an MBA. Pick. Oh, sorry.
Paid for that MBA.
yeah.
Can you tell me where to go for lunch?
Son. I woke up and started getting involved, and once the shock and awe wore off that yes, these were the decisions that were being made, and I knew for sure they weren't made for the right reasons. We started to come together as a community, and because my mama taught me you don't get to complain about the problem unless you're willing to be part of the solution.
Amen. Yeah.
So we gathered up the community, and once we got over at the table the shock of what was happening, we thought, well, what do we do? And one of the people we got some media coverage on the news and said this is what's happening, and that only works for so long. I mean, bless the media. I appreciate all of their ability to create awareness for situations when it needs to, but somebody at the table said, the only real way to become part of the change is get somebody to represent your community out there. I'm not going to get into this, but we don't have very good representation for our area of the community specifically. And that was a real struggle. So I don't know how much,
He probably knows nothing.
All
so.
right. So it's a struggle, a real struggle. And there was a gentleman who stepped up, and he was perfect. He's also, long time here. He understood the needs and the wants and the direction that we should be going, not just as our District 5 community, but Lee County. He's worked in the engineering business for a long time. And he saw it as his calling. So we all got behind him and helped to support him get a campaign going. And he filed his paperwork, and he was in for 2 weeks and pulled out.
Wow.
And it's his story to tell. It's an interesting one. But he had to make...
And I don't know what happened there, but I will tell you, being in politics for 15 years here in Lee County, sometimes people are told there could be repercussions.
Yeah.
I don't know that this happened, but people could be told there could be repercussions.
Yeah.
Whether it's...
So we had created this movement, and when he stepped down, and I adore him, by the way. His family is like family to us.
Yeah.
So when he stepped down, I went home to my husband and said, now what? We did all of this. Now what? And he said, yeah, now what? And I said, who else do we get? And he said, who else do we get? And I thought, why? What? And he said, you got anything better to do? I sure do. I have a lot of things better to do. I sure do. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And he actually, was the first to throw the idea at me. And I said, no, I've never done anything like that. That's what he wanted to do. No, But just like so many things, I said, I'm going to pray about it. It's probably a no, but I'm going to pray about it. And I've shared this story. I don't, not to get super spiritual, but I did not have an answer for a few weeks. I really didn't have any peace about it. And I kept, talking to the Lord in my car and saying, if you want this to happen, you better show me, because I don't, this isn't what I had the plan of, know. So one day I was pulling onto the road where our office is, and a car pulled out, and I was literally saying, okay, if I'm going to do it, it's got to happen pretty quick, because I've already lost some months. And the team, said they would jump on board. I just didn't know. and a car pulled out, and the car said on the side of it, and to this day I don't know what the business is, and it said True North on it. And I don't know why that was. I was asking him to create a this is the path.
Yes.
And it was literally in the moment of that prayer that car pulled out and said True North. And I thought, okay, that was it.
Wow.
That was it. So we jumped in with all feet. We reached out to, Missy's name was given to us by a gentleman who had just come into our lives, very briefly. And I didn't know her or him very well. But he said, you have to call Missi. So I remember saying on the way to meet Missi, I said to my husband, I if I don't feel good about this, I don't push. We're both very passionate people. Is that how you would describe that?
Definitely.
So we get there, and I said, I'm going to listen, but we'll talk about it later. I said 30 minutes. Let's just I think we allotted 30 minutes.
Right.
And we went and sat down with her, and I think 3.5 hours later, we got in the car, and I had told him, we're not signing up for anything until, we got in the car, and we were both like, do we go back in and tell him?
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. I don't know if you remember this, but he was trying to give me money.
Yes.
How do we hire you now?
Yes.
And I'm like,
I think we went back in and let's sign
I'm
this
like,
up.
well,
Yeah.
and what's the contract? And can I write you a check now, like a deposit? And I'm
The
like,
contract guy.
and I'm like, well, you have to have a campaign account. You can't do. We'll get you there. We'll get you
Way
there.
early.
You have to write it from the campaign account. So we'll get you there.
And I got a immersion by fire education on. I hit the ground running with Missi, and she put me in all the places around Lee County, and did get to see parts of the community and say, "Oh, Amanda." But what I was most the best part, because there's lots of parts of running around a campaign trail and politicking that are unpleasant. I did not have fun in some areas, not areas, but some meetings. But I really, my favorite part was engaging with the community and hearing their concerns.
Yeah.
My favorite part.
And they were very similar to what your concerns were.
100%.
Yeah.
What I learned was when I would go to Sanibel, Captiva, Pine Island, and hear these communities, Estero,
Yeah.
that were crying the same things. Maybe a little of it looked different, but at its core, they were the same issues.
Yeah.
And so that felt like I understand. I completely understand. We're dealing with that same thing. Maybe a few of the circumstances are different, but at its core. And that's what gave me the drive to keep going. And from being a not a very well-known name, I went up against a guy who played in the MLB, so he had national name recognition. That's okay.
Yeah.
If I truly believed, and I'm going to say this with all of my heart, if I truly believed that he was working for the good of our community, I never would have stepped into the arena.
Yeah.
But I felt very strongly, and so did the community. And I don't regret it one bit. I know that we made an impact. I know that we got ears to listen that needed to listen. I know that decisions have been made that have altered for the better because of that. And it wasn't just me. I had a team behind me that were healthcare workers, engineers, in the real estate industry, developers, builders, who advised me. I had a water quality specialist. I mean,
She had scientists on her team.
Wow.
Scientists.
Wow.
So I was very proud of the movement that happened.
Yeah.
And I believe that movement is still happening. I don't regret it one bit. And like she said, I don't know what my future holds. I have no idea, because God has a sense of humor.
Hey, let me tell you. Let me tell you.
But the community we built along the road, I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of, because I do know those people, and I do know their issues, and we're working together to solve them, and we continue to.
Yeah.
So-
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So pros and cons and the things that you learn through the community, what does that pivot you to now, and what you're doing now, or what you're wanting to do within the community?
On a grand scale, to continue to fight for transparency and accountability in our local government, to a level that we don't feel like there's a giant gap between the community and our local leaders, specifically the Lee County Commission. I can tell you that several pockets of our communities have gone before them, Captiva, Buckingham, Alva, Boca Grande, and said, this is our plights. And we didn't just go whiny and say, it's just because we don't want it. You know, we gave sound evidence-based reasons why these decisions should not have been made. And without getting into the meat and potatoes of all of that, truly I listened to the public educate themselves on these issues and come before that commission and say, please, these are irresponsible decisions. Please don't do this to us. And they did. And now, you know, I'm certainly not here saying all those decisions are wrong, no. But the ones that have impacted those communities most severely, they deserved somebody who would champion that, not on the side of the powerful, but on the side of the community. And that's what I worked very, very hard to do. And I will continue to.
What year was this?
2024, last year.
Oh, it was 20. Okay.
So it was a primary election because that's a partisan race here in Lee County. So those races are over in the primary because whoever wins the Republican primary will win the race.
Yeah.
Win the race.
So that was a primary
And
race.
I entered late because of the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I entered in March, I think March 5th was the day.
I think March 4th, yeah.
Somewhere around there. So I really didn't get into the communities probably until April when we got rolling.
Yeah.
And so if you know our area, by April, a lot of our half-time residents who are primary, you know, Floridians and registered voters in Florida leave to go to another wonderful place for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the opportunity to probably reach those folks and get to know them. But it's important to say that I did win 15 out of 17 of the precincts in my district.
And what did we have? We had a 30 and I make a joke that and I'm not saying how she falls on this one way or the other, but she is the poster child for the single member district issue because she won her district
65%.
by 30 points roughly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and that happens and I think we've talked about this before,
65.
but that happens 40% of the time in Lee
Yeah,
County. And what happens is 40% of the time the community chooses who they want. And then Cape Coral chooses somebody else because Cape Coral is such a large
voting block. It is.
So, and you know, and her opponent had a sign with his name on it on Pine Island Road for 2 decades.
He owned a business in Cape Coral, so he was, you know, very, very well known there.
Yeah.
You know, but that leads to the conversation that as much as I was running around town trying to find out about the issues that plagued all of Lee County, Cape Coral doesn't know what East Lee County's issues are.
Yeah.
East Lee County doesn't know what Captiva's issues are. We are staring at 1 million people, which is larger than a number of states.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So when you have that kind of numbers, and then say to the Lee County voters, your Lee County commissioners should get to know all of the issues, and yes, they should, but there should be some level of focus, in my opinion, on your region and be very familiar. But I shouldn't expect Cape Coral to know the issues in East Lee County. I shouldn't.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
They should focus on their community.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, just to get into the single member district issue, if it heads to, looks like it's heading to the ballot, and if it does, and if the people of Lee County vote that we should stay at large, by all means, they have spoken, and I can support that. But give them the opportunity to vote. And some would argue that, well, there's a path to get it on the ballot, and that path was hijacked through legislation. If you dig what I call the Lee County underbelly and find out how to get it to the ballot through because we're a charter home rule county, it's virtually impossible to get it there. And even Senator Pasadomo at the Lee delegation said when the commissioners are the ones who appoint the charter committee that makes those decisions, they align with the commissioners that put them there, and it's been tried out. I'm probably not as familiar as the dates and numbers and the years that it's been brought up to get it on the ballot, and it was very close at one time, very close to getting on the ballot through the Lee County Charter. And I think there was 2 vote. I think there has to be a 3/4. It's one of the only structures that you have to have a vote to get it on there, which is also, arguably a restricted measure. So I think it should be on the ballot.
Yeah.
That's what I advocate for.
And Jonathan we just had Jonathan Martin on one of our last segments.
Yeah.
And he said that the at-large districts was created when we were, and we're all conservatives here, when we were a Democrat majority community. He said that, right? You were there, right?
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
I found it interesting. I didn't know that until we had that conversation. But what I do know is when this bill to put this on our ballot went through the state House of Representatives, there were 11 votes against it, which is a small number, but 8 of them were Democrats. So a supermajority of the votes against it were Democrats.
Wow.
So it's interesting, and that always makes me a little suspicious.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right? So it makes me a little suspicious, but
There are parts of, and this will tie into it, there are parts of District 5. It's a large land area. The one side of District 5, the population is sparse because it's a farming community. It's an agricultural heavy community. The other side of District 5 is Lehigh Acres, which is more densely populated. It's our workforce.
Yeah.
And they are the redheaded stepchild. They are literally the forgotten. And I will say that with confidence that there are struggles in Lehigh Acres that have caused a group of people to fight for incorporation themselves, to become their own municipality so that they can have their own voice and seat at the table because they feel forgotten and neglected, and they have been for years. So all that to say that District 5, in my opinion, will never elect a county commissioner, ever.
Yeah.
So, but their voice matters just as much.
Oh, absolutely.
So, again, I want to say this and stress this, that if the issue of single-member district goes to the ballot and it's voted down and at-large remains, the people have spoken.
Yeah.
So I'll support that.
Yeah. No,
But-
but it needs an
But give
opportunity.
them the opportunity.
It needs an opportunity, because even from the Thomas Jefferson days, he talked about, the origin and etymology of politics is to represent the people that you live with.
That's right.
Yeah, and I always talk about it, even, Cape Coral is at large, and, I'm over at Tarpon Point, and I can drive northeast and northwest. I don't know what's going on over there.
That's right.
So how can I represent them?
In within your district,
Yeah.
yes. Cape Coral is just massive. It is.
well, we live in Cape Coral, and when I moved there 15 years ago, it was so quiet. Like it was almost a change moving from Miami.
community.
And if you heard a siren, it was so rare that you're like, oh my God, what's going on? That never happens. It was very
Exciting
dark at night. Like our street lights weren't. I have some street lights now, sparsely, but it was dark at night. And coming from Miami, I call them the cars that go boom. There were no cars that go boom. Like
cars
where
that
like the
go
bass
boom.
is so like,
I like
and it
Yeah.
shakes the windows of your house.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that. So it was nice, but I don't think I appreciated it as much as I did, because now we're just 2 streets in from Veterans. You know where I live, and I hear sirens all day, every day now, and we're some of the most dangerous roads in the state of Florida.
Wow.
Cape Coral and Fort Myers, and that's how much it's grown in the 15 years that I've been here, and it's grown in people, but not infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
the dirty word.
Infrastructure.
I mean, we talk about it, we think about it, we run on it, we plan on it, and
That's
it
right.
doesn't seem to change.
We're some of the deadliest roads in the state of Florida.
Yeah, I can believe that.
We
I
are.
can believe that.
And that's not a list we want to be on.
Yeah,
so.
no, not at all. So let me ask you a question. From 2024 now, 2025, have you seen much of a difference now within the platform that you ran on, and knowing why you ran on that platform? Have you seen any changes?
I have.
Okay.
I have. And I would like to say that our group, our community, who fought hard to bring awareness to it, helped to navigate some of those decisions. Because I would like to give, most recently an example, the community next to us, which is also considered an agricultural, rural would be a better characteristic. They're called Buckingham. And they've been fighting for 20 years for a piece of land to be preserved, or let's not even say preserved, developed in a more responsible way. So just to explain a little bit, each area falls under our Lee County Comprehensive Plan that sets the future land use for what's going to happen in that area. And our future land use map in our rural section has dictated that we're, one house per acre. That was supposed to be, always. Well, in recent years, we've had developers come in and say, what we want to build, more houses per acre. So they have this little co-op system, and without explaining all the nuts and bolts of it, basically they say, hey, we'll bring in infrastructure money and other incentives, and in a swap, we get more density on that land. And that's kind of where we threw up our hands and said, wait, this isn't developing. When you're talking about in the area that they're developing in my area, in my neck of the woods, it's one house per acre, but many of those homes are one house per 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres. And the place that they're developing, it's always been cattle land and developer property rights, most definitely. That farmer should be able to say, and in our community, it's a farmer, but he's also a judge in Lee County. Did I just say that? He and some others, put their the developer that's wanting to buy it. They should be able to sell that property, but the developer that's buying it shouldn't be able to increase, upzone it for his likes to the detriment of the community. Okay, and that's what's happening. 30-foot home sites in 30, 40-foot lot sizes next to a house that's on a 5-7 acre ranchette.
Wow.
So that's a whole nother hour conversation. But Buckingham was fighting for that very same thing, and the developer that was asking for way too much in an area that shouldn't dictate that. That footprint goes somewhere, but not in a rural area. The developer submitted it for because the community brought a lawsuit. They got their funds together. They hired an attorney, and they said we deserve better decisions for our, because the county approved it.
Yeah.
And they brought the lawsuit, and the developer threw up his hands, and I appreciate this. He submitted the property for Conservation 2020, which is a program we have here to buy up lands and conserve them within the county. And the county voted unanimously to put that land, after 20 years, into perpetual conservation land. So it's protected. And we only have so much rural land left.
Yeah.
And when you spend the hours that I have studying the impacts to the environment of having those type of lands, and for watershed, for green space, for wetlands, for and you think, oh, there's a pasture there, let's throw up a parking lot. And I'm obviously explaining that in a gross way, but we need to make more responsible decisions for development in the last areas that we have, that once you develop those areas in a way that they shouldn't be developed, you can't get them back.
Can get them back.
So
That's right.
so the
Point.
Buckingham decision, to answer your question, was probably one of the best examples I can think of in recent months where, okay, so the pushback and the awareness worked out.
So Buckingham's lawsuit, kind of the developer just kind of gave up.
Yeah, he.
What's going on with your lawsuit in Alva?
So we filed the developer who came in and wants to upzone in a way that's completely incongruent to our area. And again, I don't know how the developer gives handsomely to each of the commissioners. And one of the commissioners had recently, within weeks, done work for the developer through his private company only weeks before.
Wow.
Only weeks before the decision.
Just a little of the underbelly. And I'm sure it happens in every county across America to some level or another.
One of the commissioners nominated one of the developers' representatives to the Land Code Development Committee, which is the committee that makes decisions about rezonings and things for our area. So I use this word and I don't like it, but I'm going to use it anyway. There seems to be levels, and I could tell you more. There seems to be levels of incestuousness. Did I just say that out loud? You did. That happens. That makes one go, huh? How does that really work?
How does that really work, right?
Anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to my point that I would like for there to be more transparency and accountability.
No, absolutely. It's a phrase now that the young people use. Make that make sense.
So yeah, I'm sorry. We better slow it down because I could go on a lot.
But
a lot. Oh, hold on. Now I'm started. So the developers sent out some representatives to some of the older folk along the community that have been there a long time, and they knocked on their door, and this is on record. I'm not telling you anything you can't find for yourself. Yeah. Knocked on their door and said, you don't need to come to the hearings because the decision's already been made.
Wow.
Which is actually what they say in county commission.
Wow.
What?
Man,
you can go to the door and tell that old fella. And he wasn't going to come. And he called his neighbor and he says, well, I guess we don't have to come. And that neighbor said, what are you talking about? He said, well, yeah, they gave me their card and said they were from the developer's office and we didn't need to come. I didn't know that happened in a place this size. But anyway.
Well, they're called paid door knockers. We use them on campaigns.
None of my.
And it's a campaign.
It's a campaign.
Everything's a campaign. Everything's a campaign.
Look there. And the lobbyist. Oh, here we go. And the lobbyist for the developer is this one of the lobbyists for the developer is the same campaign manager for 4 out of 5 of the commissioners. I'm going to leave it alone now. Now I'm done.
So the water ain't clear no more.
So now I'm done.
So she had her famous saying on the campaign trail. Just because it's legal
doesn't make it right.
Don't make it right.
Like it just seems
I know that is.
It just seems like common sense would dictate there's something stinky in Denver.
So there was there was so much that the community got together and we said, so what do we do? So we pooled our funds. This little Alva community pooled their funds.
I think it's 3,000
and
people that live there, residents.
Yeah.
I keep hearing about the Alva community.
Yeah, come on out.
I think Mercedes talked about Alva.
Hey, listen, sweet tea on the porch. Come on. Yeah. Come on. We love it.
I'm going to come out there.
You need to. You need to.
It's beautiful. She'll give you a tour.
Absolutely. Of our museum, our historic museum. It's the oldest settlement in Lee County.
Okay.
We can brag the oldest settlement in Lee County, and we were going to be the county seat. Okay. And, you know, that's a long history, but the Fort Myers ended up winning over, and that's a good thing because we like our they're busy over in Fort Myers, so
yeah. So
and
that's
I love
more
Fort
northeast Lee County, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you guys unincorporated
where
out
I
there?
live, I can throw a stone, proverbially, to 2 counties, Hendry and Charlotte.
Oh wow!
Because we're that far out on the outskirts.
So how long did it take you to get here this morning?
About 45.
45 minutes.
Yeah. And I enjoy that 45-minute ride.
Yeah.
I sure do. One of the my opponent ran on that he would like to have Outbacks out where we live because he didn't like driving into town. And our community said, well, that's just too bad. We like the drive.
Wow.
Well, it's funny. I asked her one time, she I have to go home and cook dinner. And I said, why don't you just order pizza? Well, nobody delivers pizza to us. I'm like, what do you mean?
Sir.
What do you mean?
You don't order pizza at my house. We can't get ice cream home.
Wow. That's interesting.
But they choose that. I mean,
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I like where I live. I like Cape Coral. I'm 3 minutes from Aldi's, 5 minutes from Publix, and Wawa's right there. I can whatever. I like it.
And I don't.
Right. They choose to live there.
Absolutely.
They choose that lifestyle.
And I guess that's a bigger conversation, that the people that moved out there bought in intentionally, saved their money, and bought into that lifestyle, that culture,
I get it.
And then to have the city come in and say, but we need the city out there. Why? When we set a future land use map to dictate what would happen out there, and you walk all over it because a developer's interests come above a community's interests?
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm done.
I was,
And the future land use map, and I'm just, I'm not very well versed on this, but I feel like the land use map took into account the coastline,
Of course.
the neighboring
The
counties,
wetlands, the river.
the wetlands, the like rural versus, industrial versus city versus, community neighborhoods, all of that. Like, I feel like there was some thought put into that. I'm not saying
Most definitely.
I'm not saying it's perfect, but I feel like when you change something like that, you would really need to have a really, really good reason, because
to disrupt all that it does to support our community supports the rest of the community through water retention and through watershed and through replenishing, and when you give that up, you don't get it back.
You don't get it back.
and it's one of the areas where the Florida panther lives and hunts and
the bears
and the bears, but the Florida panther is highly endangered.
and the caracara
Yeah,
and the small-toothed sawfish.
but most
We could
people
go
know
on.
the Florida
Yeah.
panther, and what do we have? 200 left, maybe.
Yeah.
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 It's interesting.
So the biggest argument that they'll have, the commission told us when they said we're making these decisions for you, not against you, is that we're bringing infrastructure out there, water and sewer. And we live, most of our side of the river lives on septic. And there is an argument to be made that the older septic systems that are in the tighter communities, there are pockets of communities within Lee County that have very, very old, antiquated septic systems that they're leaching. They desperately need to be updated. Focus on those communities.
Yeah.
We don't need sewer and water brought out to an area. They're going to say, I can't tell you how many times I heard the commissioners say, we don't need 800 because it's, they would be approved for 800 homes on this piece of property. We don't need 800 septic systems as opposed to the sewer. I'm not sure if y'all just saw the news article that came out this week about the water and sewer in Lee County and that we dump raw sewage in the river.
Oh, yeah.
And, and that we have, the DEP has identified years-long violations of our 2 water treatment plants, by the way, that even though they're in the city of Fort Myers, they co-op with Lee County from as far away as Buckingham, the water sources, which is what will happen if they put these sewers into our area systems, that they will be pumped to that city of Fort Myers plant that co-ops with the county. An advanced septic system, a 2025 advanced septic system, I would argue is as good or better for the environment than the water systems.
There's actually data on that. So I mean,
so to argue that to a community that knows very well our impact on the environment, and argue that water, the infrastructure they're bringing out there is better than what we have new, is don't tell that to people who know.
Yeah.
Well, there's always got to be a reason.
Sure.
You got to always have a reason, right, for what the decisions that
To
you make.
justify it.
And I think that, it's funny, the older I get, the more you look back in history and you look at, just your own history, right?
Sure.
Your own history. And
Sure.
was I on the right side of that or was I not?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
That's right.
And
That's
sometimes
right.
I wasn't.
That's
and
right.
I can identify now. Well, I really thought I was at the
Yeah.
time.
Right.
But it's funny, we just had we had a podcast with the state legislature, and he talked about not making decisions based on emotion, like remove
right.
yourself from it. A lot of my life was making decisions based on emotion.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's
Sure.
times in my life where I was not on the right side of history, and times in my life, obviously, where I was. But I think you think about these elected leaders who otherwise good people probably make a lot of good decisions.
Sure.
But on certain issues, you think, well, 10, 20, 30 years from now, will they know they were on the right side of history, or will they realize they may have been on the wrong side of history?
Right.
Right. Like, I think if I would have been thinking that way when I was in my 20s and 30s, I might have made a lot of different
Decisions.
decisions.
Yeah.
And to speak to that, there were several issues that were brought up to me by all areas of the Lee County communities that when I would sit down and talk with them, my personal feeling was, I can't think of an example, my personal feeling was, well, no, I wouldn't do it that way. But if I'm being objective,
Yeah. No,
that
absolutely.
if I'm sitting on that board, even though that's not personally what I think, I should vote this way because that's the greater good. That's the
Yeah.
better decision for the whole, So I would certainly hope that we all can view things in a way that maybe personally we don't want to vote that way, but there's a greater good. And
No,
we have
absolutely.
to set those feelings aside from places of emotion.
No,
to make
absolutely.
decisions,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
was talking to a attorney general candidate that's on the campaign trail now, And, that was a part of what he was telling me his vision was to make sure he protect and defend the laws of the state of
That's
Florida.
right.
Yeah.
And he can't have personal emotions behind
Absolutely.
it because he's like, he knows
Absolutely.
so many laws. If it was him personally, he'd be like, that is so dumb.
Right.
But he was like, his job
Right.
as an attorney general is to protect and defend,
All
what our
people.
legislation that's
That's right.
passed through the House. So, absolutely. So, son, you still got that fire.
A little bit. Sorry, don't get me talking about it.
Well, like I said, she wasn't well known throughout Lee County, but she was well known in her community. That's why
Yeah.
she did so well. And now she's more well known throughout Lee County. You get calls from all over Lee County now.
I do. We were in a store yesterday, Darius and I, and I was going to check out, and the guy behind me said, "Are you going to run again?" And I said, "Sorry, excuse me."
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm going to do whatever is the right decision at that
Yeah.
time."
What would you tell somebody, let's say, that has never run for anything, never been in elected office? What would you say were like a highlight and a low light? Like,
Again, the highlight, I think of every single place that I went that I was either invited to or it was arranged, meeting with the community and hearing their concerns and hearing their stories, because we don't get to change things unless we develop relationships so that we can understand better.
yeah,
Change comes from the basis of change is built on relationships, that you can understand somebody who, like I said, you may not agree with, but
That's
once
right.
you understand and try to their perspective, and I encountered that every week, getting to meet the community.
Yeah.
The hardest part was when you talk about sides. Sometimes when people are very passionate about their side, there are descriptive words that are used, and how do I say, there are sweeping indictments made for whole other groups of people, and that was hard to listen to, because at the end of the day, we are all people. And
you
I
mean the
wanna be
political
able-
nastiness?
Yes.
Okay.
I was trying hard. Yeah, there's
Yeah, you were a little shocked by that.
I was, you know what? I was completely
And,
shocked
and
by that.
I'm almost immune to it. Wouldn't you say?
The infighting. I would get in the car. There was one, I will give you this instance because it was so shocking to me, and she will remember it. There was a quote, I will use the word quote, journalist that was speaking at a political event. And I was just going, because when you go to these little political events, I shouldn't say little, larger political events, they give the opportunities for the candidates. When there's a primary going on, they give the opportunity for the candidates to stand and have 2 minutes, give your platform, say your name. So I got very used to that. I didn't at first. What? I have to do what? I sing. I don't speak.
Yeah.
So anyway, my husband would say otherwise. But
That's different.
Yeah, I know, right?
we were at this meeting, and there was a state elected official who was also there. He was the speaker for the evening. So I was excited to hear him. I'm going to leave the name out so that we can't identify. But this journalist that was charged with introducing the state elected official for the evening said the most vile things about 2 members of our local media, and he spoke in ways that was, in my mind, he referenced them and described them in words that were less than human.
Wow.
And I thought, have we gone so far down the hole that this is how we describe other humans, even who have different viewpoints
Views,
than
that's
us?
right, that's right.
And I turned to Missy and said, because I hadn't spoken yet. They hadn't given the candidates the opportunity to stand up and say. And I said, I have to go. I don't
Well,
want
he
to be in
actually
this
also
room.
incited violence.
He did
He encouraged the crowd to punch the media person
in the
face.
throat.
Wow.
Or face.
Throat punch him. He
That's
goes, if
what-
you see him, throat punch him. Something. And I just looked at Missy and I said, I don't feel good being in this room. I don't want to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah.
And she said, order to go, because we'd ordered our food already, because it was a
Yeah.
restaurant. And she
Yeah.
said, let's get it to go. and she said, I'll back your play 100%. I said, let's go. Right. That's right. That's right.
Well, and when someone's elected or vying for the job to be elected, asking to be elected, they're signing up to represent all the people,
That's right.
right? Now,
That's right.
Yeah, and the people that vote
All the people. All the people.
and the people that vote you in are voting in because you align somehow with their values and
Absolutely.
their issues and things
Sure.
like that.
Absolutely.
So once you get in there, you represent the values that you campaigned on that you have,
absolutely.
right? But you represent all the people within those values. There's things you can't do. You can't go against your values, right? You
No.
can't. Certain things you can't do. But
No, and I encountered those people lots of times. That when it wasn't a just a primarily Republican event, and I would go to events and people would ask me, more of those moral and core issues that necessarily don't speak directly to the job that I was applying for. And I just said, I hope that we can both be adult enough that even though we disagree on this subject, that we can. What is the I don't remember the saying about celebrate what unites us and try to understand what doesn't.
That's right.
But stay true to who you are.
That's right.
And I did my very best at that.
you stay true. Yeah, you're
know.
good. You're good. Now I don't know what our timeline is because I don't know.
We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask something. I want to talk about something which is so weird because we thought this was like a God sighting, maybe. Well, I think I know it was a God sighting. So you all were talking about something before we went live.
Opportunity zones.
And then I got a text about that same thing to make sure you bring up opportunity zones for North Fort Myers and Lehigh.
Absolutely.
And you have already talked about Lehigh being kind of like the forgotten area,
Yes.
or maybe
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's forgotten. I don't know if it was
Lehigh is a unique area where it is the workforce. Everybody knows that. They get up every morning real early and then they travel somewhere else to work.
Yeah.
The majority. And Naples, Fort Myers, Estero, other parts. And they've always had that issue. And because of that, and maybe that's one of the driving factors, they come home to a place that, when I tell you I can show you pictures of areas of Lehigh, that unincorporated Lee County, it looks like a third world country.
Wow.
and it's just not a joke.
I'm not exaggerating.
Like there's still some dirt roads out there. Now, when I moved here 15 years ago, I went to Lehigh, and and there was these beautiful houses, but they were built. The road was dirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
But that
I
was 15
listen.
years ago.
I'm okay with dirt roads. I listen out where I live. Dirt roads. I love dirt roads. Sorry.
Country song on
Yes.
that. I'm from Kentucky. I
There
know
is
about
a country song there.
Matter of
That
fact-
screams a country
My
song.
family's house is on the center of 27 acres, and it's a dirt
Right.
road to get out to it.
People know. People around here know that if you want to just dump some garbage and not have any accountability for it, head out to Lehigh. Nobody's checking. The community has. I cry for those people that they've come to the commission, and the most recent board meeting was about Lehigh code enforcement, and it is pitiful. It is pitiful. And so those are the areas that we should just have a complete spotlight on and funnel dedicated effort into how do we fix this. So, and when I went to Lehigh and spoke to them, I said, I have an idea for Lehigh that I know a lot of people would get on board with so that they can live, work, and play in their community, and not have to get up in the morning and go work elsewhere and come back to a community that is not taken care of. Yeah. And it can happen, and there's ways that it can happen, and we don't have enough time to talk about it here. But I promise you, I have researched it extensively, and there's ways to do better by Lehigh. Yeah. And opportunity zones is a brilliant way to bring investors that get incentives so that we change the footprint there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a great way to do it.
So let me ask you a question. Knowing what I know about opportunity zones, what is your vision? I mean, honestly, if you could do it now, what would be next steps? I mean, because, again, knowing my passion, knowing what burns down inside of me, and the more we talk about this, the more I want to get involved with Lehigh, to really see, how we can make a footprint. I think for myself.
They need a savior.
Yeah. We talk about legacy. Legacy is trailblazed, marks that can never be erased, and it's the amount of impact that God puts in us that we're able to deliver to others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to get involved with Lehigh. I don't know how, and that's why that's the question.
Well, and with your connections in D.C., you can probably be very, very helpful.
Highlight it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lehigh needs a savior, for sure.
Yeah.
And Lehigh is good people.
It's really the salt of the earth.
They are hard workers who don't have time. Since I've been involved in this, they'll say, well, the Lehigh voters don't come out. Lehigh's worried about working to just take care of their corner of the
No,
earth and
I-
their
trust
family.
me, yeah.
They are where I was when
Yeah.
I said I didn't know about those issues because I was busy working and raising my family.
Yeah.
So the ones that did come out and I did get to hear from, so to put the nuts and bolts to it, they need more infrastructure help from Lee County as far as getting that built out in a way that's long term. They also, the commercial aspect. So the way that, and this is true for Cape Coral too, the way that Cape Coral and Lehigh were set up years ago, the innovators of that time were thinking, let's split up all these areas in these lots, sell them off. I don't remember all the documentaries they've done on Cape Coral about how they sold the dream. They'd go into other areas of the country and say, you can buy a lot for $20. You know, I don't know. There's documentaries on it. But there's so many platted lots that there is big swaths of land in Lehigh that could be developed commercially to make it a live, work, and play community, but they're sold to individual people. So we talked
like Cape Coral, the pre-platted community,
100%.
And but our city council, we have a city council that works on
really, we need
that,
one of those
that
now.
has worked on pooling some of those swaths of land together,
And that's
and
what we
rezoning
talked
it.
about in Lehigh. So if you come to these investors and developers and say you get all of these incentives, and they go and buy up, they call it like lot block, where they buy up several of the
absolutely.
lots and build them for commercial areas to develop. It can happen. Is it difficult? Sure it is.
Yeah, but it can
Do
happen.
hard things.
Yeah, I got a
things.
friend, Antonio. He's in a little area called Inslee, Alabama, and very, very similar situation.
Sure.
And he was able to take a forgotten community that nobody wanted to be in after dark, and everything from grocery stores to doctor's
it.
offices. Matter of fact, I went and got tailor-made suits in the community, and I'm like, and when people was like looking at my jacket, like, Inslee, you was there? And I was like, yeah, that's who made this. So he was able to do the same thing with that community.
I love it.
He remembered that community, 40 years ago when his mom was raised in that community, and he wanted to see change be brought to that community. And when he started out in early 2007, people was like, there'll never be a barbershop here. There'll never be a gym here. There'll never be a grocery store. Are you
Right.
crazy? And he had this vision
Right.
from an economic standpoint of view and work development standpoint of view, we can do it. I
Right.
can get the right people that can understand the vision and can see what can happen in this city.
Right.
And so it was, let me tell you, it was a forgotten community. But it's not no longer.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, no longer. I mean, he just built 200 new homes in the community, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, just one man's vision.
I love it.
Yeah, just one man's vision. So yes, I'll connect you with Antonio. He's doing a great job. Like literally, I mean, when I tell you, like they have pretty much bought up everything, revitalized everything, and Inslee High School has been completely. It's if he showed you the pictures like 20 years ago, and you seen what the city looked like today, you'd be like, "There's no way." There's no way. So there's hope.
Yes,
There's
sir.
hope.
Hope lives there. It
yeah.
just has to be awakened by the right people.
Yeah, by the right people.
And you have some nice leaders rising up out there in Lehigh. You got
Absolutely, Derek. Absolutely.
I don't know his last name.
Yes,
but Derek is really working hard.
Yeah,
for his
there is a group of people that are dedicated to trying to see change out there, and they make themselves annoyingly known at the BOCC, and I appreciate that because the more you come in front of them, I pray that Lehigh sees different days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they deserve better.
Yeah.
They
Man, this was an exciting opportunity, man. Like honestly.
I know, but trying to get her. She's had a lot going on.
I was going to be so good. I was going to be so good. I said a lot of things. No.
Yeah, no, you got anything else?
I mean, there's so many things. What's our time
know.
frame?
No,
So
yeah, you got like 2-3 minutes.
Whoops. Aw.
well, I just listen. The background she has. You made me think about my background, I guess, a little bit. That my people came in through Jamestown, Virginia, and worked their way west until they
Sure.
hit Boyd by God County, Kentucky. And my family was there since 1806.
Right.
I never thought about that history. I guess but I never thought about that till some before you, but a lot since I've met you.
Sure.
And my dad was the first male to like literally move away,
Oh,
move to Naples. My mom and dad.
How dare he?
The first like McComas male to like literally move away.
Oh.
I mean, we still have our property and stuff back there, but your history here is, I think, part of your faith and your history here is what drives you to make it a better place.
It does.
It
does.
And there's keep America great again, and there's make America great again, right?
Right.
Like if we can keep it great,
Right.
we don't have to try to make it great again. Trump played with those two different
I know,
things
right?
back in 2020. His people wanted to change it to keep America great, and he's like, oh, I like MAGA. I like MAGA. He likes MAGA. But anyway, but I mean, you're just trying to keep your community great, right?
And I don't want my generational ties here to overcloud the people who come here because they want to find the same thing. So
No,
if
it
you're not
shouldn't.
here for a long time and you want to make a home here, I want you to feel the same way about this area. I want you to buy in to what this area.
But to do that, they need to know the history, and the history comes from
That is
people
true.
like you.
That is true. Right?
Yeah,
That
no,
is true.
absolutely.
That is true.
Yeah, and I think greatness is consistently, constantly evolving as well, because I always talk about it from a leadership standpoint of view. I'm not the same guy I was last year. I get my foundation, but becoming great or greater is the best version of yourself you could possibly be. And I think even with your
100%.
community, you don't want to be stagnant.
No.
You don't want to, we laugh about it. I'll go back to some gyms where I played football at. I'm like, wow, this gym looked the same as it looked back in 99. Y'all buying more?
Maybe it needs paint now. I don't know.
And to some people that's there current, they're like, man, it's a great gym. I'm like, yeah, it's a great gym,
Sure
but I've been in
is.
some gyms that look much
Exactly
better.
the same. Yeah.
And so I think even
Sure.
with our communities, sometimes whether it be 5 years from now or whether it be 10 years from now, you want to trailblaze greatness and
Absolutely.
becoming the best community that you could
Absolutely.
possibly be within your community.
And I want to link arms with the people who want that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even though we may disagree along the way,
Yeah.
celebrate what unites us, and let's work on the things together that we can make it better.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It got to be about the people. Like, it got to be about the people, and that's what I think in leadership. We have to understand that it's not about us.
That's right.
It's
Absolutely.
about the people.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine, he pastor, out in Atlanta, and the thing that I always noticed about him and his wife, when they have luncheons and they have dinners at their church, him and his wife is up with aprons. And I'm like, man,
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
I do too.
And
I
he's
love
like,
that.
the greatest
I love
amongst you will continue to serve. And so they just stay really grounded.
You can't lead unless you serve.
That's
right.
right. That's
You
right.
cannot effectively lead unless you serve.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
The least of these.
so
Absolutely.
if you had a message we got a lot of candidates that are running now,
Whew.
right? If you got a message.
Let's be clear. I am not a candidate running. No.
Yeah, but if you had
I
a
did that.
message, if
That
you
was
had a
whole
message
nother
for
life.
them.
I felt like I
yeah,
got aged 10 years.
Yeah.
No.
yeah. But
A
if you-
message. That I guess that's it. That responsible decisions, thoughtful decisions can be made for different areas of Lee County that are not the same decisions because
That's right.
they're different struggles, and we're that big. But if enough of the community is willing to come together and talk to our leaders and try to get representation that looks like the direction that we should be headed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people, I think a coach taught me, it's very cliche for many years, I'm going to treat everybody the same. And he said, no, you can't treat everybody the same because everybody's not the same. You have to be fair. And I think about 3 of the young men that I spend my most time with. One have a father at home, one has a stepfather at home, and one has no father at home. And I'm like, I can't treat all 3 of them the same because I'm dealing with one that I have to always honor. Hey, you have a father. That's a question you need to talk to your father about. You have a stepfather. I know that's an interesting dynamic for you, but you got to find a way to sit down. And then the one that has no father.
That's right.
And so I'm like,
That's right.
I have to. I can't treat them all the same. but I have to be fair in my decision
Right.
and even my presentation, how I approach every decision in their life. And I think it's the same thing. Everybody in your community is not the same.
No, they're not.
So when you're making a decision, for all people, you have to understand. You have to be able to listen. That's the one thing Scott Turner said yesterday that I like. He said the first thing I did was I talked less than the person who was in front of me talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, and
Yeah.
you will learn.
Yeah.
And you will
Boy.
learn. Boy, that is a good thing for all politicians to learn. Listen. Listen there. How about this? Listen. Do a whole lot less talking than you are hearing so that you can be the kind of representation that, yeah.
God gave you one mouth and two ears.
Two
for a
ears.
reason.
Absolutely.
Listen,
Man.
I
Give
you
learned
two
so
mouths.
much about Lee County and this community in that 6 months.
And you were actually shocked.
Shocked.
I wasn't.
Sure.
I'm immune to it. I'm like,
I
oh yeah,
know.
that happens. Oh yeah, I know. Oh
It
yeah,
happened.
probably.
The one that I got up and left, that happened all the time, and I just thought, man, I
Well, that's
would
what he
go
does.
home and
Yeah,
think,
that's what that guy does.
man, this is very
That little
discouraging.
guy runs around
Yeah.
and jumps and insults people. That's what
Yes,
he does.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I mean, this is I will say one of the most powerful interviews that we've had. Just because I can feel your passion, and I can feel.
I love
agree.
Lee County.
Yeah,
I
being
love Lee
authentic.
County. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
She does.
Yeah, and we've had some great interviews that have come in here, but you can always tell when someone has that fire, for people, and they're not
What's
just.
my name in your phone, Missy? Oh.
Fiery lady.
Yeah.
Fiery
Well,
lady.
Missy, you have
Do
anything?
you know what my email is?
What is your email?
Now
I'm
my husband's really gonna kill me. Really gonna kill me. My email for the last 30 years has been redstorm911.
Redstorm.
My personal. I have a.
No,
I have a business.
listen, I get it.
My personal email is redstorm911. That's terrible.
I was consulting with this lady I think a couple of years ago, and it's interesting the emails and the Cash App tags and the Venmo
Yeah.
tags people put
It's telling.
identity. Yeah, and so my wife asked me, I had to send something over, and she says, "Hey, who did you Venmo brown sugar?" And I was like, "That's the lady from earlier." And I'm like,
Oh, that's how she sees herself. That is just fine. That is just fine. I like it.
like, who was that you sent
I
that
like
money
it.
to? Yeah,
If it
so-
were Javi, I would know. He ordered something online.
You know the
and
spam.
It wasn't
I
anything
hope
bad.
You know
It
those
wasn't
spam
anything bad.
spam things you get on text messages on your phone. My husband was sitting at his desk yesterday. He looked up at me and he says, "Well, I just got a text message. Would I be interested in a 50-year-old with kids?" He said, "I already am." I was like, "Oh my goodness, Darius, it's terrible."
Well, as we always say, we're out of time, but we're not out of message. And we certainly, let me tell
that's
you,
good.
that
That's
we
good.
certainly want you to come back for sure. And I'm gonna make a trip.
you.
Like I'm gonna make a trip
Do a
over
tour
there.
of Alva and
We'll go over to Lehigh.
and introduce him to
Yep,
some people up
absolutely.
there.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Truly, I am not. Those are not just words. I
Yeah.
would love that.
Nah.
We'll make it happen.